Hello, YouTubers. Happy 28th day of November 2016. Glad to have everybody with me here on the Level-Headed News. I'm your host, Brenda, and I have a lot of news to bring you today. Into it, the first one I have is off of westernjournalism.com. It says, new CNN poll shows Trump's favorability ratings inching higher. From CNN/ORC is suggesting that Americans who might not have previously approved of President-elect are now starting to warm up to him. Those who were polled, 3% said they believed Trump would do a very good or fairly good job as president, and 40% confidence in him to fix the economy. A figure higher than the numbers that President Obama, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, or Ronald Reagan had before they took office. These percentages are a far cry from pre-election polls that showed Trump having extremely low favorability ratings among voters. Gallup, Trump's favorability ratings before the election was 34%. Additionally, he was 71% unfavorable with Republicans, 32% unfavorable with independents, and a dismal 5% among Democrats. After the election, those numbers increased and are continuing to climb. The new CNN ORC poll showed that 63% of respondents expected the economy to be in good shape by the next year, the highest confidence level it's been in that poll since September of 2012. People surveyed believed Trump would repeal Obamacare, renegotiate NAFTA, and create jobs. Trump did not fare well in the poll when it came to his transition to the White House. While 46% approved of Trump's actions to date, 45% were disapproved. In regards to selecting cabinet members, 45% said they had no confidence in Trump to choose the right appointees. In terms of leading the country, only 33% have confidence Trump will provide real leadership, and 43% have absolutely no confidence. Americans were split on whether or not Trump will remain faithful to his campaign slogan, "Drain the Swamp." 51% think it's likely to happen. All told, 66% of those polled bring change to America, but only 43% said that it would be changed for the better. Numbers are shifting in Trump's favor. He's still likely to face major opposition from Democrats and adamant Clinton supporters. Pew Research Center poll conducted November the 10th through the 14th showed 63% of Clinton voters wanted Democrats to stand up to Trump on important issues, even if it means getting less done. Didn't give Trump a chance. The number was significantly higher than 78%. So there's that information. All these URLs are in the description of the video, so you can do your own research on them. You can check on the links that are listed in them. You can look at videos that are in some of these, whatever you want to do at your leisure. The next one is off of Zero Hedge. It says the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, is concerned over a missing radioactive device from Iran's Bushehr, Saudi-owned Arab newspaper, Arshat al-Awsat, Thursday, and I probably butchered that name, so if you're doing the drinking game with the show, this would be the time to do it. It says, we get this to cooperate with me here. Well, it's kind of jumping around. Let's see. Okay. It says, furthermore, as oilprice.com's Tzventa Paskova notes, aside from the security concerns at the forefront in the GCC's mind is what impact the radioactive device, wherever it may be today, could have on water supplies. According to the newspaper, the device went missing after the car transporting it was stolen. Thankfully, the vehicle was recovered, but the radioactive nuclear device was not so lucky. The GCC has contacted the International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA, over the incident. Both organizations are concerned that Iran's nuclear program may pollute waters of the Gulf. Ashraf al-Assad quoted the GCC Emergency Management Center chairman, Adan al saying, most members of the GCC, which include Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman, desalinate seawater from the Gulf. If contamination from the device were to reach desalination stations, an already critical situation becomes even more critical. The missing device is set to lose half of its power after 74 days of inactivity, Tamini said, noting that it still should be handled with care even after that period. Ashar al-Assad, the Arab official, criticized Iran's low security and safety levels at the Bashir reactor, adding to the lack of Iranian transparency about its nuclear program adds further concerns for the Arab Gulf states. Iran's nuclear program has recently entered the spotlight again after Donald Trump won the U.S. presidential election. In March of this year, Trump said in a speech addressing the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, "My number one priority is to dismantle the disastrous deal with Iran." If Trump were willing and able to deliver on that promise by tearing up the deal, Iran would once again impact the oil market, dragging down Iran's oil exports from the near pre-sanction levels it has almost reached in recent months. Last week, the U.S. House of Representatives voted overwhelmingly in favor of extending the Iran Sanctions Act, or the ISA, from 1996 through December 31st of 2026. In fact, the act, adopted long before the most recent international sanctions against Tehran, was aimed at punishing investments in the Iranian energy industry and deterring the country from pursuing the development of nuclear weapons. This bill to extend the ISA after its expiry still needs Senate approval and President Obama's signature to become law. So there's that article. The next one's off of BizPac Review. I'm waiting for the hamster to fling it up here on the page. Here we go. Obama administration reportedly accepting refugees from terror states already rejected by Australia. And yet a further indication that President Obama has little interest in vetting immigrants coming from areas of the Middle East. The administration is about to grant entry to thousands of refugees that have already been rejected by Australia. This comes from a report issued by Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley, who indicated that the countries they are fleeing from include Iran, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, and Sudan. This situation is concerning for many reasons. Your department's negotiated an international agreement regarding refugees without consulting or notifying Congress. Such information was not disclosed to Congress during the annual refugee consultation that occurred on September 13th of 2016, even though your staff confirmed that the agreement had, at that time, been negotiated for months, the Iowa Republican wrote. Secretary of State John Kerry and Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson Tuesday afternoon. Then Grassley addressed the ultimate concern. Why are we admitting to American shores refugees who have already been rejected by our allies? Finally, it begs the question why Australian and other countries refuse to admit these individuals, what other countries are doing to help alleviate the situation, what kind of precedent this sets for future refugees interdicted at sea by Australian forces as prevented from entering Australia, and how similar situation will be prevented in the future, Grassley continued. The letter was co-signed by Representative Bob Goodlatte, Republican and chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. In a press release published the same day as the letter, Grassley indicated that the two chairmen requested a copy of the agreement and a classified briefing to gain a better understanding of the unilateral international refugee agreement that the administration negotiated without congressional consultation. In August, Obama announced that the goal of admitting 10,000 Syrian refugees had been met. We have is off of express.co.uk. Here we go. Hillary Clinton may block Trump from the White House as campaigners raise £1 million for vote recount, it says. A gaggle of activists trying to keep Donald Trump out of the White House have raised to force a vote recount. Crucial swing states they claim were affected by electoral fraud. The group, led by Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein, have contest the November 8th and are urging Hillary Clinton to join their crusade. The Democratic nominee could still snatch the U.S. presidency away from Donald Trump after being told to demand a recount in Wisconsin,
the Russian
Michigan.
Government has engaged in espionage against Americans.
There we go. She just pops up everywhere, don't she? Find my place now. She interrupted me. The Democratic nominee could still snatch the U.S. presidency away from Donald Trump after being told to demand a recount in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania by election lawyers and computer scientists in the latest twist to the presidential race. The activists, including voting rights attorney Fast and University of Michigan Center Director for Computer Security and Society J. Alex Halderman, called Clinton's campaign chairman John Podesta, campaign General Counsel Mark Elias, their findings last Thursday. Clinton received 7% fewer votes in Wisconsin, which used electronic voting machines as opposed to optical scanners or paper ballots, according to the group's findings. The former Secretary of State could have lost as many as 30,000 votes in the state if the pattern is to be believed. The 69-year-old lost the vote by just 27,000. Although it is not proof that the election was rigged, it is a pattern that should have been looked into, the group claimed. Trump stormed to victory in both Wisconsin and Pennsylvania states, which the Democrats won in 2012, while Michigan has not yet been called for a candidate. In this article, we'll fix that a little later. Time is running out for the Clintons. If she were to make a last-ditch bid for the White House, as the deadline to file vote recount in Wisconsin is Friday, and Pennsylvania is Monday, and Michigan is next Wednesday, according to New York Magazine. Before his stunning victory over Clinton, Trump reportedly claimed the election was rigged in favor of his opponent and even admitted the result of the election, something which is against the U.S. presidential tradition. The Russian government hacked the Democratic Party's computer network in a bid to dig up information on Donald Trump in case he becomes the next president, officials claimed. Reportedly suffered online, and Hillary Clinton also reportedly suffered an online attack from Moscow as bolster its intelligence arm ahead of the presidential election. Chairman Debbie Wasserman Schultz said, when we discovered the intrusion, we treated this like, and it is, our team moved as quickly as possible to kick out the intruders and secure our networks. But I'm not done. The next one is off of bizpackreview.com, and I'm waiting. It says recount effort hits major snag. Say to obtain a recount in 3 states, an effort also taken up by Hillary Clinton supporters. There is no absolute right to order a recount in Pennsylvania. The person requesting a recount of votes must first present a showing of fraud, Yahoo News reported. Oops. Of course, for the Green Party presidential nominee and Clinton supporters is to take their cause to court. The Pennsylvania Election Code provides that instead of granting candidates file a direct recount must instead contest the count in a court proceeding, according to Pennsylvania code. States cannot file direct requests for a recount. They may appeal the order or decision of any county board regarding the computation or canvassing any primary election or regarding any recount or recanvass thereof. During the appeals process, the court may determine that necessary. And what evidence must be disgruntled, or must the disgruntled candidate present to the court to be successful? Courts. For Pennsylvania regulations, there's only one way remaining for Jill Stein to get a recount in Pennsylvania, and it's a complicated process. That Stein would have to file for court appeal and present a prima facie case. Fraud took place. It has a lower burden of proof threshold than beyond reasonable doubt. It's still significant. Stein would have to prove in court that fraud was probable. This is going to be very difficult given that specialists recommending the recount say there is no proof of hacking or fraud. All this was enough to raise concerns about the Pennsylvania recount by the far left Daily Cause. Issue of fraud. When the Clinton campaign joined forces in the recount effort, Clinton campaign counsel Mark Elias conceded that evidence of fraud, claimed to have an obligation to more than 67 million Americans who cast ballots for Hillary Clinton to participate in an ongoing proceeding that an accurate vote count will be reported. One person that the only fraud on the issue was Stein herself. To be successful, a recount in Pennsylvania would have to overcome another huge obstacle: Trump's large 70,638 vote margin of victory. And Pennsylvania's Secretary of State's office reported this final tally. Donald Trump got 934,583 votes. That's 48.8%. 2,863,945 votes. That's 47.83%. Darrell Castle got 21,193 votes. That's 0.35%. Jill Stein got 49,170 votes, which is 0.82%. And Gary Johnson got 144,141 votes, which is 2.4%. Blind luck, according to Pennsylvania Republican Party chairman, they had nothing to do with Trump's victory. It was attributable to good old-fashioned hard work. We went right where we needed to go to win, Rob Gleason said in an interview with radio host John on Sunday, according to The Hill, and added that Clinton herself gave Trump a push. In the areas where Mrs. Clinton said she was going to close the coal mines, we got tremendous crowds of people. 400,000 to 500,000 Democrats voted for Trump, he claimed. And the next one I have is off the conservativedailypost.com. One says, truth exposed as new fine print shows exactly where fundraiser money's going. Jill Stein has raised over $5.8 million with her fundraising campaign so far, but that's not the incredible part. No, the part that will leave you stunned is the fact that the fine print explicitly states the excess money will go directly into Jill Stein's special nonprofit, Clinton Foundation. And yet thousands of people decided to donate anyway, while it's already been confirmed that this is part of a larger scheme to undermine American democracy, with George Soros as the epicenter of a majority of the funding. It's simply a testament to a larger picture. What do I mean? Very simply put, number one, it's clear Jill Stein won't win the election anyway. Already something is off here. Number two, a majority of the donations came from George Soros, the man who viciously funded Hillary during the election cycle, pouring money into both her campaign and her foundation. Number three, Jill Stein now appears to be using excess donations to fund her own nonprofit. Stein was paid off by globalist elites to institute a third-party call for a vote recount that would appear nonpartisan and thus be allowed to move forward in federal courts. Website that it will make $3 million, or it will take $3 million in lawyer fees. That's real quick. Very expensive lawyers are around $400 an hour, so that means it would take 7,500 on the clock lawyer hours. Detailed in large cases may have a maximum of 3 to 4 lawyers working full-time at any given point, but just to prove my point, let's say 10 lawyers are needed. That means each lawyer would have to work 750 on-the-clock hours. Each lawyer working 50 hours a week would take 15 weeks of full-time work to finish the case. Conclusion, are you seriously telling me that it's going to take 10 lawyers almost 4 months to ask for a recount? Give me a break. It shows how much of a crock this is. At that point, it would be well past the extended deadlines that have already been granted. That's not even the kicker, though. It would be after Inauguration Day. It looks like a few liberals had come to their senses, just like Bernie Sanders. There are no refunds. Something very shady is going on right now, and many people are saying it isn't possible or Hillary already conceded. My answer to those people is this: do you really think these people are playing by the rules? You're smarter than that, because you know that these are the same exact people that lied about Benghazi, that rigged the DNC against Sanders, that acquitted Hillary of all email-related crimes, that granted Huma Abedin, Anthony Weiner, and Cheryl Mills immunity, and they have control of everything for another 60 days. You don't think something is about to happen? I told you so when we all see something different happen on January the 20th than what we're being told. The next article I have for you is off of the conservativetribune.com. It says, Trump lets Hillary off the hook. Then Ashcroft says she may get prosecuted anyway. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton celebrates President-elect Donald Trump's decision not to appoint a special prosecutor to invest her dodgy email habits. She might want to heed the warning issued Tuesday afternoon by former Attorney General John Ashcroft. I would hasten to mention, though, that it's pretty well known that there are a number of other investigations regarding the Clinton Foundation. Ashcroft, who served as President George W. Bush, or served under President George W. Bush, told Fox News host Bill Hemmer, as noted by Newsmax, I don't think that what the president-elect has said would foreclose following those investigations to an appropriate conclusion, he continued. And if they found out that there was some sort of protection or legal action, that it was merited there. I don't think that is what has been said today would foreclose action on those issues. The point was that the president-elect's refusal to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Clinton's original scandal did not necessarily mean that she was off the hook. Moreover, Ashcroft was correct in noting that Trump never said or implied he would preemptively shut down the still ongoing investigation into the Clinton Foundation. It was first revealed Tuesday morning by Trump's transition advisor and former campaign manager Kellyanne Conway that he did not intend to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Clinton. I think when the president-elect, who also the head of your party, tells you before he's even inaugurated that he doesn't wish to pursue these charges, it sends very strong message, tone, and content, she said, the premise being that he wished to strike a conciliatory tone. Trump himself later confirmed this during an interview with the New York Times. I don't want to hurt the Clintons. I really don't, he maintained. She went through a lot and suffered greatly in many ways, looking to hurt them at all. The campaign was vicious. To appoint a special prosecutor after FBI Director James Comey already twice closed the original investigation might indeed be vicious and perhaps even questionable. To allow the Bureau to continue its other investigations, however, would only be fair. So there you have that story. The next one that I have is off of conservativedailypost.com, and it says, when this came out on the 22nd, which was 6 days ago, it was breaking news. It said Trump had just announced the prosecution is moving forward. Earlier this week, rumors surfaced out of Trump Tower that Donald Trump did not plan to prosecute Hillary Clinton for her years of illegal activities, most notably her use of private email server and deleting 33,000 emails. Sources indicated that Trump planned to let the issue go as a way to let the country heal and work beyond divisiveness. No, let's try that again. My goodness, my eyes are playing tricks on me. And work beyond the divisiveness. It appears that the sources speaking on this issue were dead wrong. In a scheduled meeting with the New York Times today, President-elect Donald Trump was asked if he would take prosecuting Hillary Clinton off the table, and he replied no. The comment was released by New York Times reporter Maggie Haberman in a tweet. And they have that tweet here if you would like to look at it. It says, Trump says no when asked if he's taking investigations off the table for Clintons, but adds he doesn't want to hurt the Clintons. While Trump did indicate that he wanted the country to heal and move on from the election, he realizes that she doesn't deserve to be held accountable for her actions. Hillary Clinton intentionally and deliberately obstructed justice and committed perjury on several occasions. There are two things very important to keep in mind going forward with Trump charging Hillary Clinton. First, Donald Trump has not ruled anything out. Sources originally indicated that he would not charge Hillary Clinton for the deleted 33,000 emails and using a private email server, but he can still charge her with several crimes surrounding the Clinton Foundation. Secondly, Trump has created an atmosphere of suspicion while he waits to see what the Obamas will do. There is an old precedent that would allow President Obama to pardon Hillary Clinton before she is charged with any crime. If Obama pardons her, that opens the door for Obama to be exposed. To reveal his plan now before he's sworn in, Democrats would have 2 months to plan for his move. Trump is issuing the art of the deal and keeping all options open. By doing this, we know that the Clintons are paranoid about what will happen to them after he's sworn into office on January the 20th. They will have to contemplate Trump's decision for months. It is important to remember that one of Donald Trump's most supported ideas was to have Hillary prosecuted. If Hillary Clinton can get away with everything she's done, what will stop future politicians from carrying out the same actions and citing the Clinton precedent? Hillary Clinton deserves prison, but it appears that Trump's administration still plans to hold her accountable for her decades of corruption. He is playing cat and mouse game with Democrats. He will attack when the best opportunity presents itself. The next article that we have is off of naturalnews.com, and it says, she's back. 10 radical ways the lawless left is planning to put Hillary Clinton back into the White House on January the 20th. Instead of stepping back for some self-introspection after being handed a stunning defeat in the elections, the political left has declared that the whole world is wrong. These communist-leaning radicals now believe it's their job to correct the errors of the election by putting Hillary Clinton in the White House by any means possible. Democracy be damned. Despite all their democratic rhetoric, at their core, leftists despise democracy. They hate leaving anything up to the voters, and even when the voters speak with determined clarity by rejecting the failed policies and criminality of the radical left, the same liberals reject everything the voters told them and continue down the path of self-delusion. That's why right now the radical left is working to overthrow the Trump election victory and install Hillary in the White House by any means necessary. This includes, of course, newspapers like the Washington Post completely fabricating utterly false stories to try to destroy or censor the independent media. True free press in America is silenced. Can the radical left succeed in its mission to overthrow the country? As long as Drudge, InfoWars, Natural News, and Zero Hedge exist, in other words, they cannot get away with their communist takeover. There are 10 ways that the radical left is either pursuing or strongly considering to steal this election before January the 20th. For the record, in this case, I am not predicting any particular scenarios will occur, and I hope none of them do, but I'm warning Natural News readers about the possibilities that are still in the cards, even if some of them do seem rather remote. Some of these scenarios are highly likely, and others not so likely at all, but you should consider them all. Scenario number 1, steal the electoral votes. Rumors are already swirling that the electoral voters may be bribed to alter their votes in defiance of the popular voters in their states. I've heard that some electoral voters have even been offered $150,000 each to switch their Trump votes to Clinton votes, and other voters are being death threatened to change their votes. Yes, this is how the radical left treats democracy. If you don't vote for their candidate, they threaten to kill you. The reason this tactic will not succeed by itself is because Donald Trump has won by 78 electoral votes, bribing enough voters in states that even allow personal discretion to alter such votes is a near impossibility. The chance of this happening is almost zero. The fact that so many delusional leftists still believes they can win by threatening the electoral voters is just one more example of their sheer delusion. Scenario number 2, plunge America into chaos and declare martial law. The chance of this tactic, however, is higher. In fact, the plot to overthrow the republic by riling up clueless, hypnotized leftist instigators is already ramping up. As Doug Hagman writes in HagmanReport.com, again, we see the lies of the leftist media and their card-carrying socialist comrades deceptively claiming that these protests are both spontaneous and organic. They are neither, and are as spontaneous as the attack in Benghazi was in 2012. They are well planned, organized, and funded by the same people who refuse to cede power. The media is even reluctant to call them for what they are: organized riots, complete with injuries and property destruction. Left unexposed, these riots will not only continue but spread. Watch for organized riots on Christmas, New Year's Day, and Inauguration Day. The radical left believes that they can seize power if sufficient chaos is unleashed in the streets. Scenario number 3, crash the markets back to the dark ages and destroy continuity of government. The scenario is highly likely to be attempted in my assessment, but not until after Donald Trump is sworn in as president. Once it's all official, the central banks may collude to crash the global debt system so that Trump can be blamed for the catastrophe, while the obedient leftist media lies to all their followers as usual to say Obama's doubling of the national debt had nothing to do with it. Yes, when financial markets go bad under Obama, it's Bush's fault, but when financial markets go bad under Trump, it's Trump's fault. The likelihood of markets crashing before Inauguration Day is also worth considering, but if they do crash before Obama leaves office, I believe that will be an accidental crash, not a deliberate one. Way for globalists to use market crash is to time it to occur once Trump takes office. That's why myself, James Wesley Rawls, and Michael Snyder are all predicting a market implosion in 2017. Scenario number 4, launch an EMP nuclear assault on America and blame the Russians. The EMP false flag scenario I originally mentioned to Dave Hodges in a recent interview. Notably, the narrative for this false flag is already being put into place by fake stream media publishers like the Washington Post, which has declared natural news to be controlled by the Russians. Seriously, they did. With that narrative fully in place, the Obama regime can launch a nuclear weapon and detonate it at an altitude above North America, creating a false flag EMP attack that's then blamed on the Russians. Obama could then declare martial law and issue arrest warrants for all the independent media websites named by the Washington Post as working for the Russians. I know it's all utterly insane, but this is how lawless radical left thinks. They have decided to win at any cost, even if it means nuking their own country. That's how delusional and dangerous these people are. Read books by Ann Coulter to learn more about the tactics of the desperate radical left. Scenario number 5, provoke nuclear war with Russia. There's also the scenario where Obama deliberately initiates a nuclear war with Russia, almost certainly initiating it in the Ukraine, along the eastern front of NATO. He then uses the declaration of war to declare a new national emergency, claiming he must remain in the White House until the crisis passes. It won't fly, of course, but they might try. The entire fake stream media has not reported any of this, but Paul Craig Roberts has correctly described how Obama is positioning European nuclear assets into an aggressive, warlike posture to provoke provoke a Russian response. Read some of Robert's outstanding analysis articles at this link, and there you can click on that to read that information. It's no exaggeration to say President Obama has been trying to provoke Russia into nuclear conflict for years. Will he succeed? I doubt it. Putin will hold off until Trump takes office, and then he and Trump will likely avoid nuclear war altogether. Scenario number 6, assassinate Trump, then threaten Pence until he complies. This scenario is being actively pursued by the radical left. They are literally attempting to assassinate Donald J. Trump so that Mike Pence becomes president. From there, they hope they can sufficiently threaten or control Pence to follow their bidding. As all that is unfolding, they will also be maliciously attacking Pence, Trump, and the independent media via the fake stream media, which will fabricate utterly false stories on a daily basis, just as they do now. Scenario number 7, open the floodgates for illegals and overrun the country with militant foreigners. Here's the scenario that's already been partially activated by Obama. The idea is to flood America with illegals, especially those with ties to La Raza, then proclaim portions of the American Southwest to be property of the Mexican people. As far as I'm concerned, they can have the entire California, half of California, for free. It's on the verge of economic and social collapse, and any nation that has to deal with that mess is going to regret being associated with it. If they do take half of California, let's make sure they take all the electoral votes that go with it too. Scenario number 8. Activate a massive false flag event in a large U.S. city, possibly targeting Trump Tower. It is notable that Ron Paul is now echoing my warning of a massive false flag event to try to alter the outcome of this election. We must crucially understand that the globalists had numerous false flags planned before the election, but they chose to avoid activating any of them because they mistakenly thought they had the election locked up. Thus, by the narrowest of margins, we the people managed to win, or both win, the election for Trump and avoid large-scale false flag attacks on U.S. soil. I can't even describe to you how narrowly we all threaded the needle on that one. But those same false flag operations can still invoke at any time, and they may yet be used to cause disruptions, chaos, or to invoke martial law well before Inauguration Day. From a tactical perspective, in the minds of the radical left, the best kind of false flag to achieve their goal of staying in power would be one that targets Trump Tower. Although the FAA has restricted the airspace around Trump Tower for security reasons, the tower could still be targeted by determined suicidal leftist radicals carrying out something like a combination of chemical explosives and dirty bomb material. Google, an anti-American organization of traitors and communists, has already renamed Trump Tower to Dump Tower on Google Maps. This is possibly a directive to left-wing terrorists to dump explosives and radiological weapons on the target. In effect, Google may be actively working to overthrow the U.S. government, just as the Washington Post is too. Scenario number 9, popular uprising to occupy Washington, D.C. on January the 20th, 2017. This scenario is almost certainly, as Natural News is already aware of, radical leftist plot to seize and occupy the Capitol building on January the 20th. This effort is being organized on a massive scale and marked as a protest if a sufficient number of willing radicals arrive on the scene, and you can bet they will be transported by thousands, courtesy of George Soros. The peaceful protest will be transformed into a let's take the Capitol effort. There will be 1,000 U.S. Marines stationed in D.C. on Inauguration Day. I can't wait to watch them take back the Capitol under the orders of President Trump. The radical left needs to be shown that what real Americans are made of, and it doesn't mean backing down just because a few thousand whiny transgendered snowflakes with stuffed unicorns and tie-dyed rainbow t-shirts think they can steal the country by plopping down on the floor of the Capitol building. Scenario number 10, poison pill. America the week before inauguration. This isn't actually a way for the left to take over the country. Rather, it's a way to ruin the country before Trump takes over. The idea to cause a massive financial crisis in the days before Trump's inauguration. This can be accomplished more easily than you might suspect. The Fed can announce substantially higher interest rates while the federal plunge protection team flips to reverse, selling all the government-owned stocks and financial instruments they've been buying up for the last 8 years to prevent a market crash. Basically, it's a fire sale scenario. Everything must go. In the span of a few short days, President Obama could decimate the financial markets, vastly increase the cost of U.S. government borrowing, wipe out billions of dollars in private wealth among the citizens, and even have international borrowers flushing U.S. debt. All of this, from the view of the left, is that lying media outlets like the Washington Post, New York Times, and CNN could all blame Donald Trump. It's sort of like agreeing to sell your used truck to your neighbor and then setting fire to your truck before you're handing it over. This is the way the radical left thinks. They would rather destroy America than lose control of it. Conclusion: it ain't over, folks. Prepare for activation of the Second Amendment. The conclusion in all this should be obvious. If not, it's not over until Trump is sworn in as president, and even then, it's still not over until we clean out the radical leftist liars and cockroach communists running the left-wing media. Even then, it's still not over until we shatter the NEA and stop allowing communists to set the academic agenda in our nation's schools. To really save America, we must break the back of the communists who have infiltrated every institution in this nation, and we must then re-educate an entire generation of children and teens about why America is the greatest nation on earth. Can we succeed? There are tens of millions of dedicated leftists, communists, and radical Islamic terrorists who hope we don't. My advice is to lock and load, prepare to defend your nation against the radicals. A civil war now seems almost inevitable, as the radical left refuses to accept the outcome of any democratic election they don't win. If they turn this thing to violence and the Second Amendment gets activated, the radical left is going to find itself disseminated at the hands of real Americans. The next article I have for you is off of BizPac Review, and it says, after close review, Donald Trump officially wins blue state, Michigan. Republican President-elect Donald Trump won the state of Michigan by a little over 10,000 votes, according to a Wednesday report by the Detroit Free Press. The actual total was 10,704, and the official total comes from the state's 83 county clerks after the results were reviewed and certified. Although this is the official count, the results will be reviewed on November the 28th, today, by the Michigan Board of Canvassers. The state's 16 electors will vote in the Electoral College on December the 19th. Many people have asked about Michigan's process for counting ballots and certifying election results. Please be aware that all 1,521 Michigan cities and townships completed ballots counting and reported unofficial results by the morning of Wednesday, November the 9th. The Michigan Secretary of State's website reads, the county canvassing boards, as they do every election, then began their work to review and certify the results from each precinct. Trump earned 2,279,543 votes. And Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton earned 2,268,839 votes. Trump won the election on November 8th by earning 306 electoral votes nationwide, compared to Clinton's 232 electoral votes. The 2016 presidential election is a first for the state of Michigan. The state has never had a presidential race this close in its history, according to Detroit Free Press. Michigan went to the Democratic candidate 5 times out of the last 5 presidential elections, according to the election tracking website 270 to win. The next article I have is off of the conservativetribune.com, and it says, Green Nightmare. Trump move to defund government research on global warming. President-elect Donald Trump has already begun working furiously to stop American jobs from leaving the country and to find the best people to run various sections of the government after he's sworn in on January the 20th. Bucketfuls of tears over what they think Trump will do, and will undoubtedly start sobbing even more when they learn about his plans for NASA, the UK Guardian reported. Bob Walker, a senior Trump campaign advisor, went on the record saying that NASA would no longer focus on global warming, but rather on space exploration, as it should. We see NASA as an exploration role in deep space research, Walker explained. Earth-centric science is better placed at other agencies where it is their prime mission. Walker did note that not all research into global warming climate change would be halted under Trump administration, but the politicized science would be ignored and NASA would return to space exploration. I believe that climate research is necessary, but it's been heavily politicized, which has undermined a lot of work that researchers have been doing. Mr. Trump's decision will be based upon solid science, not politicized science, he stated. Trump himself stated last week that there was some connectivity between humans and global warming. CNN reported a sign he isn't going to simply toss out global warming theories as some liberals think he will. While campaigning in Florida, both Trump and Vice President-elect Mike Pence promised to improve the space program and once again send humans to the moon and beyond, Florida Today reported. Under Trump, NASA would finally go back to doing what it does best, defying the limits of science and showing the world that America truly is the greatest country on the face of the earth. Try this. It's time for America to lead in these areas once again. Trump wants to see that happen, and it looks like he's going to work night and day to make sure that America's best days are not behind us. Next article I have is off of Breitbart.com, and it says, "You're hired, Governor Nikki Haley as ambassador to the United Nations." President-elect Donald Trump will nominate South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley as his administration's ambassador to the United Nations, according to Charleston Post and Courier and 7 other sources. Haley, currently serving her second term as governor, would hold the job once done by Susan Rice in the Obama administration and now held by Samantha Power. Haley, the first woman governor of South Carolina, is a rising political star in the Republican establishment and was a Trump critic during the presidential campaign. She met with Trump last week, despite their differences expressed in the presidential campaign. The governor prominently criticized Trump during the State of the Union address in January. During anxious times, to follow the siren call of the angriest voices, Haley said. We must resist that temptation. Campaigning for Senator Marco Rubio's presidential campaign in March, she joined the chorus of Republicans who demanded that Trump release his tax returns. Trump responded on Twitter, "The people of South Carolina are embarrassed by Nikki Haley," he wrote. By October, however, Haley said she would vote for Trump despite her reservations about his character. "This is no longer a choice for me on personalities because I'm not a fan of either one, but what it is about is policy," she said. The official announcement from the Trump transition team is expected later today. Then there's an update. It says in a news release, Trump says, "Governor Haley has proven track record of bringing people together regardless of background or party affiliation to move critical policies forward for the betterment of her state and our country. A proven deal maker, and we look to be making plenty of deals. She will be a great leader representing us on the world stage." I have is off of the Conservative Tribune, and it says, "Hope. Trump gets a huge blowback over Romney, considers Petraeus instead." Donald Trump works to fill the various positions in his administration during the transition period. One of the individuals being considered as the next Secretary of State is former Massachusetts Governor and GOP presidential candidate Mitt Romney. But that pick has been widely panned in some circles and even led to some infighting among members of Trump's transition team and broader Republican Party. He's biting criticism of Trump during the 2016 primary cycle and election season, according to the New York Times. While other names have been floated as candidates to be the nation's top diplomatic representative, New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, another name garnering attention for the spot, is former CIA director and retired Army General David Petraeus. The UK Guardian reported recently that Petraeus was being considered for the role as head of the State's Department by the Trump team. He was ready to re-enter public service after having kept a low profile during the past few years following his run-in with the Obama administration over an extramarital affair during which he shared some classified information with Paula Broadwell, his mistress and biographer. Had initially been critical of some Trump rhetoric on the campaign trail, he has since offered praise of Trump as an outsider who could potentially shake things up and make necessary changes to Washington, D.C. The BBC in recent days only seemed to confirm his willingness to serve in the Trump administration, intimated that the only acceptable answer to a president asking for help was, "Yes, Mr. President." The former commander of the U.S. and NATO forces in Afghanistan and in Iraq told BBC Radio 4's Today program, "If you're asked, you've got to serve. Put aside any reservations based on campaign rhetoric and figure out what's best for the country. I've been in a position before where the president has turned to me in the Oval Office in a difficult moment without any pleasantries and said, 'I'm asking for you as your president and commander-in-chief to take command of the international security force in Afghanistan,' he continued. 'The only response can be, yes, Mr. President.'" Petraeus admitted to being critical of some of Trump's remarks regarding Muslim refugees and immigration, but stated that he had been hearing good things about Trump as a person from some of those who had been working closely with him during the transition. It's very interesting that those who have been talking to him have said, he's very personable, very hospitable, very gracious guy, full of questions and dialogue, he said. The general went on to say that he believed Trump could develop a closer and more cooperative relationship between the U.S. and Russia, likening it to President Richard Nixon's outreach to China in the 1970s. Any such efforts be made with your eyes wide open. It remains to be seen and out, but considering that General Petraeus remains well-liked and respected among the American public, and especially among Republicans, more so than Romney, this could be an excellent addition to Trump's administration. I have for you is off of mrctv.org, and it's a blog post. It says, Feds steal 100 million acres of Alaska during the summer of 2016. Every state has a motto, some interesting like "live free or die" in New Hampshire, and some are sadly truthful like "our government is vampiric" in Massachusetts. Just kidding, it's more along the lines of "we'll tax you to death" or something like that. Anyway, some, like the motto for the 49th state, Alaska, are very upbeat and offer a sense of adventure. In Alaska, politicians will tell you to look north to the future. But a shocking move by the federal government might inspire Alaskans to change their motto to "our land is being stolen by the feds." The excellent writers at the Truth Amendment Center have recently reported a huge story that's getting very little pop media coverage. The federal government has just seized 100 million acres of Alaskan land, a tract equal in size to the state of New Mexico, and supposedly Governor Bill Walker isn't doing a thing about it. The federal takeover has come in 3 phases, the most recent being a robbery by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service bureaucrats on August the 3rd of 77 million acres of Alaskan land from Alaskan government control. As Suzanne Downing wrote for Must Read Alaska, the state remained silent as it yielded sovereignty. It was guaranteed statehood to federal control. By taking management of fish and wildlife away from the state, federal government broke another of its Statehood Act promises, and rural Alaskans lost even more access to substance. Prior to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife seizure, the Bureau of Land Management seized over 1 million acres in July, and about a month prior to that, the U.S. Park Service stole 20 million. Mesmerized victim of succumbus or incumbus. I'll try that again. Wow. But like a mesmerized victim of succubus or incubus, that sounds better. Governor Walker did not stand up for his citizens, did not stand up for the concept of federalism, did not stand up for the U.S. Constitution, and did not stand up for federal and state agreements already existent. The most superficial of those is the statutory level, which of course is always trumped by the constitutional rules, but let's just play the devil's advocate for a moment and only look at the surface. Even on the surface level, the Alaskan National Interest Land Conservative Act, the ANILCA of 1980, set up specific areas of wildlife refuge that would be handled by the feds and specific areas that would be managed by Alaska. These lands were to be managed by Alaska. Then there is the Antiquities Act of 1906, which supposedly created a power for the president to establish national parks and monuments. It did not give bureaus within the executive branch this magic power. But of course, the ANILCA of 1980 and the absurd Antiquities Act of 1906 are both patently unconstitutional. No branch of the federal government is granted the superhuman ability to seize state land to create federal parks, monuments, or protected lands, or anything of the kind. And as the astute Ms. Downing noted, territories are supposed to be free of federal land control when they become states. The pertinent section, Clause 3 in Article 4 of the Constitution reads, "New states may be admitted by the Congress into the Union, but no new state shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state, nor any state be formed by the injunction of two or more states or parts of states without the consent of the legislatures of the states concerned as well as of the Congress. The Congress shall have the power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States, and nothing in this Constitution shall be so construed as to prejudice any claims of the United States or of any particular state." Note that the Congress can control and make rules for territories and property belonging to the United States, but once a state enters the Union, it does so with the full privilege of other states, and ceding land to the federal government is not something any state is compelled to do. In fact, even if a state politician wanted to cede land to the feds, the only way this could happen is to disconnect that parcel from the state and create a new territory out of it. So the entire superficial set of rules that the feds just broke aren't even pertinent. Only the U.S. Constitution is, and that doesn't give the federal government its power at all. So why is Governor Walker quieter than a church mouse on this? Ms. Downing believes that he's silent because he wants to keep the feds happy in order to facilitate the gas pipeline he's trying to build, a pipeline that would traverse large areas of federal land that has already been stolen from Alaska. Does this sound odd? Why is it that the governor of a state I have never visited, in which most people voting for their representative in the U.S. have not visited, must answer to people who don't even live in his state? Why can't people of Alaska decide what they want to do within their state, and busybodies from the outside stay away? When did this kind of nosy neighbor federal behavior become acceptable? Better yet, why not let individuals in Alaska determine the fate of the land? Let all federal and state-run lands be sold to private interests. If the government is supposed to represent the will of the people, then we need not worry. The people's will can only be expressed when they are free to do so. Instead, we get political maneuvering and more loss of sovereignty, while the real interests that people could show themselves are crushed. Perhaps Governor Walker would like to change the motto of Alaska to one of his choosing. Perhaps he would like to simply use Alaska, the Stockholm Syndrome state. The last article I have for you is your feel-good. I always like to leave the show on a little higher note because we get so much of this negativity going on that we need to balance ourselves a little bit. This will be a screen share of a video, and I think you will enjoy. It's only so let's get it up here and play for you.
To smo morali uraditi, to je bila potreba. Zaid je došao u naš razred, divno pametno dijete, ali Zaid ne čuje. I Zaid nije znao govorni znakovni jezik. Mi također ne znamo, ni djeca ni ja, i morali smo nešto uraditi.
pomoć finansiraju roditelji upravo ove djece. Meni je zaista žao što je situacija takva da roditelji moraju da rješavaju stvari o kojima se zapravo treba da brine društvo, odnosno država.
Molim te, pokaži mi domaću zadaću iz matematike.
Fred je puno sretniji i ide puno veseliji u školu i sad se puno više trudi da nešto nauči. I znakovnog jezika i verbalnu komunikaciju.
So there you go with that. I thought you'd enjoy that. It's a nice story there about the children accepting somebody that's different from themselves. Parents that are funding the project for the teacher to come in and help teach the students how to do the sign language. And I'm reminded of several things with that story. And that's why I brought it up here today. First off, Friday was Black Friday, and there were people going absolutely insane in stores, beating the hell out of each other for stuff that is dispensable. And I'm wondering how many of those people could have done without whatever it was that they were buying in those stores and could have donated to a worthy cause such as that in their own communities to help a child fit in to a class, or help educate someone that's underprivileged, or help feed people that need food, that there are veterans that are starving to death because their benefits have been discontinued and they are homeless. It's winter, they're freezing in the streets. We have families that are living in their cars because they've been evicted or foreclosed upon and have nowhere to live. And yet people are out beating themselves up over a television set or something in a store. Are you kidding me? People need to learn to set their priorities. Be a little bit more compassionate for their fellow human beings. I see so many selfish people that don't take other people's feelings into consideration. Shut them down over a rumor or a piece of gossip or whatever their agenda happens to be, instead of embracing that person and trying to get to know them better, trying to find out what their needs may be and see if you can do something to help them instead of shutting them out. And it's something everybody needs to take into consideration, especially here at the holidays. My goodness, what better time ever than here at the holidays, and the world in such disarray as it is. I hope it's a beautiful day where you are. I hope you're able to get out, enjoy the weather. If you're in a warm climate, stick your feet in the grass for a few minutes, soak up some earth energy, balance yourself, take a breath of fresh air, and be glad you woke up above ground, because there's people that won't. Bye.